You've been out there. That land is like an ocean frozen in time with grass and rock that have grown over the humongous stormy swells. That the verticality of that land does not convey in any of the documentaries you've seen, any of the photographs you've ever seen of the land. It is so much more impressive to be there in person. And imagine going out there on verbal directions without that big pipeline road that we drove in on.
Yeah.
Forget the pipeline road. That wasn't built until the 1960s. Imagine
Oh,
all those rocky paths and the Y intersections. Every time I stopped my Jeep, you guys back behind me in your RAV4 were probably thinking, well, what are we doing now? That was me pulling up Google Earth and hoping I could get a few bars so I could get our location and figure out if this was the right turn to change direction or not. Imagine traveling paths like that, not just the 2 or 3 miles that we traveled, but across 40 miles and under verbal directions, finding a patch of land 20 feet square. That's what the counterintelligence agent told the Air Force investigators. That's what the Air Force investigators went with. That's what they foisted upon us, and they expect us to believe it. And no, I think that's all just more cover story.
Well, and
needle
I
in
I'd like
needle
to
in a
point out
haystack.
too, we were out there, we had both been there before. We had GPS and we still had difficulty locating the sites we had been to previously.
Yes.
We
Yes.
were
Remember, we got out trudging around all over the place for like 10 minutes because I thought for sure I had arrived at the former location of the Sci Fi Channel monument. And we're trudging around out there. And I'd been there before. And I'm like, wait a minute, where'd it go? Somebody came and dug it up even worse than the damage that had been done to it before. And I'm looking at a waypoint on my Google Maps app on my phone. And what I had done was after my first time out there, I placed a few waypoints, just looking at Google imagery, thinking I had the right places just from my memory. And it turned out I had a wrong waypoint.
wow.
We spend 10 minutes trudging around. Here's a clearing. It's on the edge of a trail. There's a big sinkhole. It all looked the same. But the actual place where the old Sci-Fi Channel monument had been was another 200-300 yards up the trail.
We
You
the
know,
the sun was going down. We got back in the car after we were praying. We were like, please God, stop the car one more time before we are out of here. We were we were about to come to terms with the fact that we were coming to terms with the fact that it might not happen. We might not get there. Sure enough, car stops, we get out, we walk. Toby, you didn't have time to go back and get your metal detector. So it's like, yeah, it was a roller coaster, but yeah.
well, I've been doing since then. I did a little more just Google analysis, and to be fair, I've never had a chance to go out there with an experienced guide who'd been there many times before, right? So as far as my experience with that land, I was very new to all that. I still am. Um, but I've since in the last 2 weeks, I did a little more poking around, investigation, figured out the exact location of where the Heinz house was in relation to the crash site. Kind of plotted out some distances just using the tools in Google Earth and getting a sense of things. And the path that we walked, remember, we got out of a path because I was like, all right, this is a location that I've been given. Toby is looking for landmarks to try to remember where exactly they had dug up the pieces before. And so we get out and we just start marching out across the land. We walked for like 10 minutes.
Yep.
We walked, I think, more or less the swath of land that Major Marcel said, or according to his description of the size of the debris field, we walked the swath of land that would have been entirely the area where the debris was. And now imagine the time that we spent walking out through that, and kind of bewilderingly, all the hills start to look the same after a while. Imagine you're in a line abreast of 200 other guys from your company. You've all been trucked out there, and you're walking heads down, policing the area over and over again in the July heat. That was the land where that happened, right where we were, right that path that we walked.